I'm going to hit record here. He keeps us out of hot water and still is able to protect the investor as well. So that's part of what this whole syndication model is that we want to make sure that we stay compliant, and then everyone is aware of what the risks are when it comes to putting a deal together. So I really don't want to take too much of Gene's thunder. So I'll let Gene maybe introduce himself and tell them about him. So Gene, please.
Well, thanks. All I can say about that is if you live long enough, you outlive all the other good securities attorneys. So that's where I am today. But I sure appreciate being with you, Augustino. I think it's great. I'm going to, just as an aside, I'm going to show a couple of slides when I get to some points here. And because of that, I have to every once in a while look down at my computer screen as opposed to just looking at the camera. So if you'll bear with me, I'm still paying attention to everyone, but I might have to divert my eyes. But for right now, what about me? I've been in commercial real estate forever. I was a commercial broker, and then I started syndicating really when I was in my late 20s. And made a career of that until, my mid 40s. And then at 45, I went to law school to become a securities attorney. I'd had enough of partners. My saying is the care and maintenance of partners can be overwhelming. The 1 year that I had the most volume, we sent out almost 1,700 K1s. Representing about 850 investors. And that was before there were some companies that would help you with that back office stuff. You had to do it all yourself. And I just thought I'd had enough. So I went off to law school, and let's see, I did that when I was 45. And I've been doing this for 27 years. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but you can probably figure that out. So, that's what I've done. And one of the things that having been a syndicator does for me, it gives me at least a different perspective. I might not be able to type as well as some of the other attorneys, but I sure have a perspective on what works and what doesn't work, and mistakes that I've made and I've seen other people make. So I'm a good mentor. Wouldn't you say so, Augustino? I'm a good mentor. Absolutely, as long as, in addition to being a good attorney. Yeah. That's right.
And that's a big part of this business too, is having the right guidance, especially even when you're starting out too. It's having the guidance to make sure you don't make any big mistakes. And believe me, there's plenty of people out there that make mistakes, like pitching a deal on Facebook and just say, hey, everyone, invest in this deal.
Well, I know Augustino and other people that I work with that have people who come to them for advice. They call me and to talk about how does this all work, and I call it a homework call. And I'm glad to take all sorts of homework calls, and they're free. And that's where I really get to know the people who want to be syndicators. And I will say that not everyone should be a syndicator. Just not every property should be syndicated. The reason not everyone should be a syndicator is the syndication business, when you get down to it, it's a people business. You raise money for 10, 15, 20 people in your deal, and you have to manage that relationship with those people as much as the property needs to be managed. And oftentimes you can hire a property manager or an asset manager to do the day-to-day work on the property, but you can't really hire anyone to hold the hands of the investors. And the troubles that I ran into when I was a syndicator, we did 16 deals, and part of the deals where we built storage facilities, built 14 deals, building 2 storage facilities in each deal. And I will tell you, most of the problems I ran into were the people in the deals, not the property. If you get 20 people in a deal and you hold that deal for 6 or 7 years, something's bound to happen to one of the people or their families, and you've got their money. So they come to you and they want you to solve their problem. And I learned about that. So the documents I draft keep that in mind so we can solve those problems.
Right. I mean, and some of the problems might be anywhere from there's a dispute, and maybe in a marriage, or they just not happy with the return. Maybe it's a newer investor, even though they're accredited, they don't know what they're doing. And then they say after 3 months, I need all my money back right now. How do you handle that? Or
Yeah,
somebody
that was
passes away.
the most unusual thing I had was I got a call from a lady who was probably in her late 60s, and she had invested $25,000 in a fund that was building a couple storage facilities. We didn't have her money. The money was in cement trucks as they were pouring cement on the site, and her nephew blew the engine of his Trans Am, and he needed his car to get to work, and she needed $6,700 to fix his car, and she wanted the money back. And I said, we don't have the money. This isn't a bank, And I thought that was the end of that. Well, the next day I got a call from her attorney, and you can imagine how that call is. How is it you took an elderly woman into your fund and didn't have blah, 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 blah. So I said to the attorney, how much did this phone call cost your client? And he said about $500. And I said, okay, you send me wiring instructions and a release, and I'm going to send to your trust account $25,500, and we'll cash your investor out. Thank you. Now, how could I do that? Well, I had a plan. I knew what to do for liquidity. And if I hadn't been able to do that, who knows where that would have gone. So that's just one of the many, many, many stories I have in the life of being a syndicator. But maybe we should talk a little bit about what are we talking about being a syndicator? Should we do that, Augustino?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm going to try to share a screen. I've put together 4 very elaborate slides if I can find them. Here they are. This looks good. There. Can everyone see that slide?
There it is. Yeah, I see it. You
okay,
guys see
cool. That's not the slide I want. I want the one before. Okay, I'll get there. All right. So here is what many people do when they go out and buy an investment property. And I've been around a long time. I've been to a lot of groups and given a lot of presentations. And many of the people just want to buy their first property. They just want to figure out how do they buy their first property themselves. And so we always talk about the fact that they should find a property and then they should buy it in an LLC. And I call that LLC the investment LLC. And that's good. They buy it and they become a member, maybe the only member, in their LLC that owns the property. And that's just great. But what if the investment in the property needs more money than just one investor has? What if there's more than one investor needed to buy the property? Well, that takes us into the world of putting together a syndication. And a syndication is 2 or more people forming up to do some business enterprise. I get a lot of calls from people who say, I want to do 6 or 7 people, but I don't want it to be a syndication. Well, it's the wrong question. The question is, putting together a group of people to do a deal is a syndication. The question is it a security? That's the issue. So when we have more than one person, then your diagram looks like this. We have the members who are going to invest in the LLC that's going to own the property. But someone needs to manage that investment. Someone has to manage the multiple investors who are in there. And typically we would form a manager LLC, and the manager LLC should have more than one person in it, and that kind of coordinates everything. So here we have a diagram, and I'm going to explain it using some specific words here. This looks like an investment of money from investors into a common enterprise This one happens to be an LLC. They're doing that for a profit motive. They expect to make a profit, and it's going to be run by a manager. An investment of money in a common enterprise for an expectation of profit through the results of the promoter or the manager. That's why you're in the securities world. The government has an interest in protecting those investors when they literally give their money up to someone else. So there are laws about what do you tell the investors, and then there are laws about who can be the manager. And so, Augustino, that's the structure you use in your deals.
Yep. That's
You
right.
guys, you find investors, they invest in your opportunity to buy a property, and you go ahead with whoever your partner is in the management entity in that deal, and you manage all the people. There's another box on there called the enhancer box. Some of the times you go to the bank, and the bank wants more net worth. The bank wants a better credit rating. The bank wants some liquidity. Because what the bank is going to do, they're going to look at the property, and they're going to analyze the property for net operating income, debt service coverage ratio. Just like when you buy a house, they do an appraisal of the property based on comps to see what the property's worth. Fine. Then they have to look at who the borrower is. And in our syndication world, they look to the manager as the borrower. And the manager may have to sign personally, may not have to sign personally, but they still need to know who's responsible. And so they underwrite the manager. And if the manager doesn't have enough net worth or whatever, we need a key principal, we need an enhancer. And that's really driven by the lender. So that's the way the structure goes. And I'm going to show you one more slide here on this topic. And the Supreme Court back in the 1940s, when it defined what an investment contract was, and the words investment contract were right in the middle of this great big paragraph that says a security is a note, a deed, a stock. Somewhere in the middle it said investment contract. No one knew what that was. So a case came before the Supreme Court called the Howey case, and they decided, and for all times, it's the Howey case. And if you read any securities lawsuit papers about a private placement, which is what we're doing, it's going to refer to the Howey case to determine if what we really have is a security. And I've already used the words, an investment of money in a common enterprise with an expectation of profit solely through the efforts of a promoter. And the fourth bullet point is the key. If there's no promoter, it's not, all four things have to be there. If there isn't a promoter, then it's not a security. So I could go back to my first slide and say, let's say 2 or 3 of you get together to buy an investment property. You form an LLC and you make it a member managed LLC. The 3 or 4 of you get together, you put in your money, and you decide that all of your decisions have to be unanimous. 4 people, 4 votes, not 60%, 30%, 14%. It's 4 people, 4 votes. So this picture, which you have right here, doesn't have the manager block on it. That's not a security. That would be a member managed LLC. And there are times when that works, but when you get 10, 12, 20 people, it doesn't work. You need to have someone to herd the cats, right, Augustino? You have someone to make the decisions, okay?
And
the minute you bring in, what?
And Gene, that previous one, the in slide number 1, that would basically be a partnership then, right? When you're just, it's a
Well, it'd
member
be an
manages.
LLC. See, you could have in this one, you could have an LLC with no manager, and that simply is a member managed LLC. You could have a joint venture. A joint venture would fit in here in that it's something, and a joint venture is usually like a general partnership where 2 or more people form a general partnership and no one is in charge. Okay, so this is an LLC. Now, a limited partnership is a security because in a limited partnership, by definition, there's a general partner. Okay, so most of the things we do today in the securities world are LLCs because in an LLC, everyone has limited liability, even the managing member. And we can allow voting. In a limited partnership, the general partner has total liability, unlimited liability, and none of the investors can vote. So the modern day syndications are LLCs with the managers being protected and the investors having a chance to vote. Is that okay?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Now,
I don't know if we're taking any questions or not, but if I were doing a workshop,
guys,
this is where I'd stop. I'd stop right now before I go any farther, and let's see if there are any
by
questions.
all means, yeah, guys, if you have questions, throw them in the chat box, speak up, say hi. I think there's even a little wavy thing you can put on your Zoom, but there's something on this slide that I want to point out right here that Gene touched on is the enhancers. The enhancers is a key aspect here because not so much to do with syndication, I guess, but in terms of getting a deal done, right? If there is a deal that it's a nice big monster deal, but you just don't have the credit, you don't have the liquidity. Let's say, for instance, you went through a rough patch and now your credit got banged up a little bit. And you found the deal, you underwrote it, it makes sense, but you don't have the credit. Your enhancer is someone that help you get that deal over the line and satisfy the bank, and then of course help you get the deal done. Right?
I think when you do deals, we call that person a key principal.
Yeah, that's
a
right.
KP. Not everyone uses the same language. Some use angels, some use sponsors, I just use enhancers because no one else uses that word. So I can be unique there.
Yeah, excellent.
Okay,
so
seeing no
we got
questions.
No, we got a question.
Okay,
because
I can't tell if there are questions, so speak up.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. So this question is from Naomi. She asks, would you put each asset in a different or its own LLC?
Each asset should go in its own LLC, especially if it's going to be financed, because the banks are going to require a single purpose entity is the language, an LLC that owns one property. Now, that's a great question, Naomi, thank you. I don't have the slide with me, but I have a slide that describes a fund or a blind pool. This slide is for one property. But if you went to the marketplace and said, we're going to buy this one property, and while we're at it, we're going to raise enough money to buy a second property. How that works is investment LLC is still the same thing. It's investment LLC with all the members, but investment LLC then becomes the single member of, I would draw a line here, down to, I'm just looking to see, could I do that now? Probably not. There would be a line down here and there would be another box and it would say Property One LLC. And it's a single purpose entity owning one property, and it only has one member, Investment LLC. It uses the same tax ID number as Investment LLC uses, so it's a disregarded entity. All the money flows up to here. This is where all the distributions happen. And you could have multiple properties, but Naomi, each property would need a separate LLC.
Excellent. I've got another question here from Alex. Alex is asking, I'm looking at a 28 unit. There are 3 of us. We're putting in different amounts into the deal. Should we be setting up a syndication?
Ask Alice if someone is going to manage the 3 of you.
Alex?
Alex, is anyone going to manage this deal? Make the major decisions?
Then you can take your phone out, or you can take it off mute, Alex, if you want to ask. I mean, there's no equal, is what Alex says.
It's not going to be an equal vote, or it is going to be
like
equal.
Let me see if I could find Alex here. Maybe his phone is muted. Oh, here he is. All right, I'm going to unmute you, Alex. All right.
Okay.
All right, there you go. You're unmuted.
Hi, Alex.
Gene,
So are the 3 of you going to invest the same amount of money?
no, that's the problem. I think one of us doesn't have as much.
Okay.
So that's kind of what we're concerned with. And so one of the things is if the person's not coming in with as much money, he's going to do more of the management side of it.
It's putting in the sweat equity, right?
Yeah,
He's
see,
doing
if
the
you're
sweat
not
equity.
going to come in with the same amount of money, when a decision happens, there's going to be 3 votes.
Right.
And you can't do anything without all 3 votes, no matter how little one of the investor has. They basically have a veto.
Right.
So in that case, it probably is going to be the picture you see in front of you, but I don't know who the manager would be. You know, it's very difficult to have 3 people in a deal. Who's going to sign for the mortgage? Who's going to do all this? You might just, it's still a syndication. The question is it a security? And if you can do it without a manager, then it's not a security, and you form a member managed LLC and away you go, which I think will cause you problems in the future.
And you think it's going to cause problems, just to be clear, it's going to cause problems in the future, because if one partner gets upset, whatever, I don't know, for whatever reason, they start causing problems for the other 2, then that's where the problems come in, right?
That's right. Why I think if the big dog wants to do something and no one else wants to do something, we've got a problem.
Right. And that's the thing, Alex. It's like, if you're going to do three guys on there or whatever, you really have to be in lockstep, and if one person has an issue, it's going to be an issue for all 3 of you.
And Alex's concern is, gee, if I do this and I do it as a security, that's going to cost a lot of money. And depending upon how much I raise, that might be too much. So tell me how much you're going to raise.
Well, so we're looking at it at about $1 million.
Okay, well that's doable.
So the whole asset's $1 million. So we're thinking like, know, so that's the thing where we're going to be spending money it's going to be eating up our cash flow here too.
Well, are you going to raise 300,000 roughly?
Well, we're thinking about just going in as a deal together with 3 of us. Depending on how much money we need to put into it, we might bring in another partner, 1 or 2 other people. So then at that
now
point,
you're up to 5 people. Now you're definitely right here. I'm trying to get to the point about how much money you raise. We have done deals as small as $360,000 and is raised, and as large as 180 million. But that type of a deal is probably going to cost any attorney, and I would look for a local attorney to do this. Probably costs about $10,000.
Right, and that's
if you have 5 or 6 investors, it would be spread across there. Are you in Ohio?
No, we're here in Southern California.
Well, so am I. So then you can use me. I'm the local attorney. There you go.
You're the local guy.
Yes, we met you in Orange County a couple months ago. So.
Okay, you come to my office. Is that what you did?
No, we went to, it was a meetup over at a Mimi's or something like that. So.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, Yorba Linda.
Yes, yes.
The Yorba Belinda meetup. Sure, I remember that. This just don't bother us. Don't mind us, the rest of you. We're just having a chit chat between old friends.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing though too. With 28 units, with that type of raise, with that many partners, it's going to be hard to squeak out a decent return.
Yeah.
That. I mean, from an investor perspective,
Yeah.
I'd be worried about that and the syndication component too, to add complexity to the issue. Yeah, man, I don't know about that.
No, I'm going to argue. I'm going to argue with you, Augustino.
Okay, bring it on.
One of the 4 questions an investor is going to ask you, Alex, is, have you done this before? So you've got to get your first deal done so you can say yes. So don't go out and try to raise $20 million on your first deal.
Yeah.
Get a deal done. Figure out if you like being a syndicator, if you like all the crap that goes with it, okay? Not everyone should be a syndicator, okay? Figure out if you like it, and then you can do bigger deals. You've got to have a track record somewhere, Augustino.
I guess that's why we're trying to pivot in this market, Augustino. We're new and we're wanting to get into the multifamily space. So we're looking at big deals initially, and now we're like, you know what, maybe we just need to go down in size. But what we're finding is that the profits, I mean, it's harder to manage costs and everything with the smaller size. So.
No question, but you got to get your first deal done.
Yes.
Yeah,
all right.
That part's true. So
any other
question here?
Any other questions as far as we've gone here?
We got another question here from Mark. Mark asks, and I'm assuming he's talking about this slide right here. Where does the LP come into play?
What LP?
The limited partnership.
We don't have a limited partnership on this slide. This slide is an LLC slide. So we have a limited liability company. A limited liability company has members and a manager. A limited partnership would just be a change in the spelling, right? LP. And then you would have partners. In a partnership, they're partners, and then this is the general partner. Okay, so it's the same thing, it's just vocabulary. But 99% of everything that's done today is done in an LLC because the manager has limited liability in an LLC as opposed to total liability in a limited partnership, and the members can vote. They don't have to. You can write an offering, you can write an operating agreement that doesn't allow them to vote, but that's going to hurt your ability to sell and raise money. Here, the members can vote for certain things.
Excellent. All right. Any other questions at this juncture, guys? I guess doesn't look like it, Gene. So yeah, please continue.
Okay, well, I've got 2 more. And so the question is, in a flowchart approach, when you come and say, I'm going to do a syndication, the question is, well, is it going to be a security? And we've covered the fact that if there's no manager, then it's a member managed LLC and it's not a security, right? But if there's a manager, like the slide we just looked at, welcome to the securities world. And there's a couple of places you can go. You can go to Wall Street and do a large public offering. You can do like Grant Cardone does, a Regulation A+. But most of you are going to come over here and do something that's called an exempt offering. When the securities rules were written, they said, you know, there's a whole bunch of investors out there that don't need our protection. They're rich, they're smart, they don't need our protection. So we're not going to regulate it quite as fully as we would with a full-scale registration. So we're going to call, that's noisy, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're going to, Peggy, is that someone in your space? No. We're going to carve out something that allows people to do offerings that are exempt from SEC regulations. And that is Regulation D. Now, just talking about Regulation D totally. In the 12-month period, the last 12-month period that the SEC issued report on, Regulation D was responsible for $1.8 trillion in equity raised. That's more money than was raised on Wall Street. Okay, that's a big deal. Regulation D is where all the small business people get their money. 80% of the people in this country work for small businesses, meaning 500 employees or less. This is where all those small businesses raise their money. So Regulation D is huge. In Regulation D, there are two components that you would find yourself using. And this is my last slide. You would use either a 506B or a 506C. I'm going to go back a step. In 1981, Regulation D was modified to introduce something called Rule 506. 506 at that time looks a lot like what's in this box. Augustino, I don't know because I'm just playing with this. Do you see when I'm doing this, when I'm moving my arrow or not?
Yeah, we see it. Yeah,
okay.
We see it.
Okay, good. So Rule 506 in 1981 came out and said, all right, we have to correct some things. We have to tie some of the money raising issues and the securities laws don't have anything to do with if you're using an LLC, a limited partnership, a corporation, a REIT. That's all entity structures. Most of that's IRS stuff. This is the law or the set of laws that regulate how you raise money from investors, what you have to tell investors. Do you have to be licensed? This is about money raising. So 506 came along in 81 and they said, okay, under this new rule, you can raise as much money as you want. You can have as many accredited investors as you want. And most of you have heard that term, $1 million net worth without your house, $200,000 annual income if you're an individual taxpayer, or $300,000 if you're married filing jointly. Unlimited accredited investors. They don't need any protection. Investors can just self-certify, they just check a box. In addition to the accredited investors in 506, you could take 35 sophisticated investors. They don't meet the dollar and cent definition of accredited, but they're smart, they're educated, they can make a decision if this investment is right for them. But you can only take 35. So they're managing the risk a little bit there by the number of people who can be in a deal. And you cannot advertise. You have to put all of your disclosures, all of your information in a set of documents called a PPM, private placement memorandum. Okay. No advertiser solicitation. So basically, when you came out with your offering, your database got frozen. Everyone who was in your database up to the day that you came out with the offering could invest with you in this offering. But any new people you got couldn't. Okay. That's really a defense against being charged with advertising. Okay. So the defense is, well, I only sell to people with whom I have a pre-existing relation. Pre-existing to what? Coming out with the offering. So from 1981 until 2012, that was the rule, Rule 506. And Congress came along and said, we need to loosen up this money raising. Let's use Gene as an example. I was operating under 506. I couldn't advertise. I could take all the accredited investors I could find, but I couldn't advertise. So how do you find these investors? And accredited investors can invest everywhere, but how would they find me if I couldn't advertise? So the government said, let's open that up a little bit and let's allow advertising to accredited investors so they can find all the Gene Trowbridges that are out there and look at a lot of deals. And let's open up advertising to Gene Trowbridge so we can find all the accredited investors out there in order to promote capital formation. So they started 506C out of the Jobs Act, really finalized in 2013. And it has some of the same characteristics. Raise as much money as you want from as many accredited investors as you can find. But because you don't know them, you really can't let them self-certify and check a box. You have to do a little background check. The rule is you have to take steps to be reasonably assured, not guaranteed, but reasonably assured that they're accredited. You can't have any sophisticated investors because here we are advertising, finding people that don't know you, that you don't have a relationship with. You can't have them. I think you need to put all your disclosures in a private placement memorandum, and advertising and soliciting in any manner that you can think of is okay. Just tell the truth. That's all that counts. So we've gone along now for 7 years with these 2 exempt offering choices under Regulation D. And I said Regulation D is $1.8 trillion a year. 93% of the money that's raised in Regulation D during that 1 year period of time is raised in 506B. A couple of reasons for that. Number one, all the experienced syndicators already have all the investors they know they need. And they just go back to investors. They get referrals. They build their database in between offerings, and they get to know people. Okay. The 7% of the money that's raised in 506C, in my experience, is from people who are getting started and they don't have a database. So they think if they advertise, they can build a database. And in fact, that's a strategy. I mean, Alex is worried about where he's going to get his investors. If he really knew who was going to put the money in that deal when he got started, and they were all accredited, I'd suggest you do a 506C. So he advertises the hell out of it and gets 100 people to contact him, puts 100 people in his database, and then 6 months after that deal's closed, he can go out and do a 506B, which is a lot easier to do, self-certifying, and he doesn't have to advertise. So that's where the world is. 93% of the money is over here in 506B, 7% is here. And another issue with 506C is a lot of people start out and try to do a 506C, and they don't have a track record, and they don't have some people to talk to, and it fails. The average size of a 506C offering in the 12-month period that we know about was $1 million. That's amazingly small. Okay, that's because a lot of people are doing small offerings when they come out of the chute, and some people who try to do bigger offerings fail because they don't have a track record. To think that you could put an ad on Facebook, ask people for $50,000, which is the going rate for investments today, 50 or 100, and not have a track record and think people are going to send you a check if they don't know you, that's pretty hard. That's a hard road. Right, Augustino?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the guys I know that are doing 506C, they've been doing this for years. They have a track record. They've also been on the training circuit. I mean, they're very well known, or somewhat well known.
Right. And that's good. When we go back to Reg A, which is what Cardone does, when we my former firm wrote all those documents, when we talked to him about it, we said, well, The only way it's going to work for you is you already have a huge database that you can go to.
Yeah.
Don't try to do any of these mass solicitation things without a database and without a track record. So those are the only slides I have, and I'll take questions.
Well, one thing, just to reiterate on the 506C too, just, and I guess this is also a question, just like you pointed out, for anyone that's starting out, then it might seem like a viable solution, but like you said, you really have to have a big email list. You have to know how to market. I guess it sounds to me like you have to have some knowledge around social media marketing, right? Or some sort of marketing aptitude, right?
So when I give, let's say you were doing a 506 and you came to me and I did all your documents and I handed off your documents to you. I'm through with you. Now what the hell are you going to do?
Right.
How are you going to find people? How are you going to talk to people?
Yeah.
It isn't all that easy. I think the trend will be toward more 506s, no doubt about it. I feel that in my business, but you guys talking about the group that you work with, you've done what, 18, 19, 20 deals. You don't necessarily need to mass solicit for new investors.
Right.
And when I was doing it, I had 850 investors. I didn't need 506C. I had plenty of investors. Okay.
Yeah. Someone had asked a question. They wanted to know if you can make the slides available to everyone.
All 4 of them?
All 4 of them.
I think, why don't I make them available to you?
Okay.
And you can communicate them. Sure, that's be happy to.
Happy to do that. Happy to do that. Does anybody have any questions? I guess I can't really see everyone right now, but I guess type it in the chat box.
I have one question.
Yeah, go ahead, Bailey.
So you were saying how you have to know the person for the 506B and have a pre-existing relationship. I kind of hear that term a lot. What exactly, I know a fine line, but what exactly is a relationship? Is that a Facebook 2 weeks, or kind of what does that actually mean?
Bailey, that's a great question, and I'm glad it was asked. Actually, there are 2 terms that work together in what your question is. It's a pre-existing substantive relationship. Pre-existing is easy. Do you have proof that you had a relationship with the investor, in my world, before you signed the fee agreement with me? See, I think when you have an LOI, Augustino, you really don't know what you're doing yet. You just have an LOI. Now you're going to try to negotiate a purchase and sale agreement. And even with the purchase and sale agreement, I don't know that you're going to syndicate the deal. You might wholesale it. You might close it yourself. So I draw the line is when you come to me to do your offering documents, and it is I send you a fee agreement. At that time, Bailey, you freeze your database. At that time, everyone in your database is pre-existing. And one of the ways you can do that is if you're using an electronic database, when you put their entry in, there's always a date when that file is created, or you do a questionnaire. And we recommend a pre-qualification questionnaire that they fill out, sign, and date, and get it back to you. So that's half of it. The other half is substantive. Substantive meaning, do you know enough about the investors? No bright line here, no definitive answer, but do you know enough about the investors to know that they're suitable for what you're doing? Age and risk, are they suitable? Are they smart enough to be able to read the documents that you give them? Are they qualified? And do they know enough about you to actually ask you, hey, when you have something, Bailey, will you call me? I've looked at your track record. I know enough about you. There is no such thing as a 3-touch rule. There is no such thing as a 30-day rule. Those are individual situations between the SEC and individual fact patterns that worked, but they are not a broad application. It's not breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That isn't 3 touches. 30 days, you meet me today and you don't talk to me for 6 months. Can you call me and ask me to invest? No, not if you're doing a 506B, you can't. And that's my favorite thing. Augustine, you're going to know this. We go to these presentations. We sit there, I sit at my trade booth, people throw cards, I give them cards. 20 days later, I get someone who sends me an email and says, Gene, I met you. I've got an offering. I want you to invest in my offering. Who the hell is this? They saw me at my booth, and I guess I saw them, but I saw a lot of people, and now I'm their best buddy. They want to be godparents to my kids and all that. It's just amazing. So that's when, we're just about out of time here, but when we talk about mistakes, one of the mistakes that a newbie syndicator will make is to jump into being a little loose about how they're getting people in their database.
Yeah. I think part of it too is, I think, Gene, you touched on this, is verifying that the person is qualified. And I think at the same time too, you're also qualifying them to see if you want them involved with your deal, because they may not be in the right mindset. They may be like negative, bad people. You don't want to be in business with them, because essentially if they're an LP, and even if they say that they're accredited, for instance, they may still be a problem. You don't want to be in a deal and then 2 years down the road, you're getting the SEC calling you because this guy feels that you wronged him in some way, and you have to deal with that.
Hey, hi, Steve.
Hi, Gene.
Steve.
How are you?
Good.
I just was looking. I've got your course and your book, both in the
All
bookshelf.
right. That's great. Thank you.
Question.
If one more person buys my book, I can retire. That's I'm right on the edge. Okay.
Well, I've done. I don't know if you remember or not the details, but I've done several dozen syndications over my career. I've been doing this for 40 plus years, and with this downturn, I'm playing with doing what I'll call a Vulture Fund. A fund to go out and look for notes of troubled assets or else assets that the bank wants to work something out to get rid of it so they don't have to go through foreclosure, whatever that is. Sure. So my question is this: I primarily have syndicated apartments. That's the main thing I've done over the years, in several thousand apartments. I own a commercial brokerage in Indiana and Kentucky, and as we go out and we manage shopping centers, we manage office buildings, we manage medical buildings, a wide variety of things. Even though I have not syndicated anything except apartments, and I've been in partnerships or LLCs with people in other types of property, but they weren't syndications. Everybody we managed as a group. What challenges do I have trying to put a syndication together for an undisclosed property type? Because
either a fund or a blind pool or a vulture fund. I mean, John D. Rockefeller, and Augustina, you know that name. John D. Rockefeller said, "You want to buy when there's blood in the streets." Okay, so I don't think we're there yet.
No, I don't either.
You can do that, but you don't have a track record of doing that. Doing a blind pool without a track record is difficult. However, Steve, your people are going to invest because of you. The first question the investor asks is, Steve, if I give you my money, what happens if something happens to you? And you can solve that because you've got continuity. The next question they're going to say is, have you done this before? And you say, may not have done a syndication of a blind pool of notes. That's probably something you haven't done at all. But And then you have to build a story that will make them satisfied. And the story is Steve and his team. I mean, that's it. I'm getting more calls about blind pools and funds today than I am getting calls about specific properties. No question about it.
You'll be getting another one from me here in the next day or so.
Okay.
Well,
Great, thank you.
And I'll tell you what, I have two more questions, but just to piggyback on something that Steve had said. Now, Gene, if Steve has a track record, obviously, with doing multifamily, he wants to set up a Vulture Fund to buy multifamily, like a blind pool, for instance, it's perfect, right? I mean, he can do that too, right? You can leverage the experience you already have, set up a blind pool, and just start putting money aside for that. But you can't obviously use that pool to go off and, okay, I'm going to do notes now. You can't do that.
No. The business plan, the investment summary that you put together that is an exhibit to the PPM kind of puts handcuffs on you.
Yeah.
I can buy apartment buildings in certain locations, certain size, certain parameters. Boy, that's a really good general dollar store out there. No.
Yeah. Can't do that. But still, you know what, though, it's still an excellent way to take advantage of what's going on today. We're already seeing some of those distressed deals hitting the wire already. So it's already happening.
And the question and I've been through, Steve, you and I have both probably been through a few market turndowns. And after the turndown, there's always distressed properties. The art of the business is, what is distressed enough? You can buy, I bought, when I was doing small apartment buildings, when I got started, I bought some buildings at the steps of the courthouse in foreclosure. And I overpaid. Okay.
Wow.
So there you go.
All right. Well, here's a couple of other questions, though. So Peggy's asking, what are the 3 to 5 most important things to focus on when starting your first syndication? And what are the red flags regarding investors?
Well, I think the most important thing is have a team to do it with, so you solve the continuity question. Have a database that you're always building, so you actually have some people you can talk to about raising money, and make it a specific property. And I'm going to give another one. I would try to keep the first raise to $1.5 million or less. You've got to be able to be successful on the first one, because the people who come to you and invest with you on your first one are going to be people that know you and trust you. And if you're not successful there, you'll give them all their money back, and they'll hold off and wait the next time until you can prove you can raise money from other people. So you've got to be successful.
That's right. And Paula's asking, I'm a new investor. What do I need to qualify as a sophisticated investor?
Some education, an advisor. Maybe you've taken some courses about apartment investing. That might be good. I would read some private placement memorandums, and then I would be ready to go. You don't have to have owned anything. If you've owned something, that would solve it right there. But there are all sorts of people out there that Augustino and I know who teach people how to invest in apartments. I'm not sure completing this series of things with Augustino wouldn't make you sophisticated. I haven't sat through all of them, but I wouldn't be a bit surprised that learning from him and his group isn't going to work for you.
And the key, Paul, is just to really know and understand what you're getting into, right? And especially in these trying times right now, there's many syndicators are holding back distributions, for instance, right? Accredited investors, I'm not saying that they're any smarter or anything else like that, but if you explain to an accredited investor who has probably a little more experience with this, if you say, listen, we're holding back our distributions because we're trying to protect the investment. When the things turn around economic wise, we'll go back to sending out our quarterly distributions or monthly distributions or whatever they are. Someone who may not be sophisticated, right? I think Cardone is having this issue right now. What they'll do is they don't understand what this means, and they'll go on social media, they'll start slandering, they'll do all kinds of crazy stuff. And Grant Cardone, unfortunately, is being the target of something like this recently. And it's
And
really
in those
unfortunate.
Regulation A offerings, you don't have to be sophisticated.
Right.
All there is, you have to have a net worth of $35,000, and that's it. Back to a question someone asked: how do you pick out what are the good, bad investors? The bad investors are the guys and ladies who come to you and want to change your deal. There's nothing wrong with reading the paperwork word for word. I would encourage everyone to do that. I'd be surprised if anyone does. But when they want to change their deal and they want to say, well, I saw another deal that was like this, or my attorney was looking at it, at some point, it's good for them to go and get advice and educate themselves, but sometimes it's just a pain in the butt. So stay away from them. And don't get anyone investing in your deals who you think needs the quarterly check to buy groceries.
Do yourself a favor on that one.
And that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And I know we're out of time here, but one of the reasons I left the business is I sat down and thought about all the money I was managing for all the investors I was managing for it. And I had reached my threshold of comfort. You know, I'm in charge of too much money, too many investors, and influencing too many lives. I'm out of here. Which is my philosophy, and three things I've done in my life. When I get too big, I pull back, and this was one of them. Okay, let's wrap it up.
All right, excellent. Does anybody else have any other questions or anything else like that? No.
It's bedtime for you people out there in Ohio, right?
Oh, it's still early. It's still early out here. It's only 7 o'clock. We're just getting started out here.
Oh.
This is out in Ohio. The party animals out here.
7 p.m.
The party animals out here. Crazy.
Did you have in this crazy time we're in? You might or might not know that I have a new law firm that I started really around the 1st of May, and because we're all virtual, we have a meeting every morning like this with the 6 of us. And after 2 weeks of that, someone says, hell, let's not have a meeting tomorrow morning. Let's have a mandatory margarita meeting tomorrow evening. So we all get together for half an hour and toasted each other with our margaritas, and it was just great fun.
You know what? I like that idea. It's going to be a new thing that I have to do with my
mandatory margarita, right?
Well, yeah, that's right. It's got to be.
Hey, thanks for having me, Augustina. You can give people all the information on how they can get a hold of me. I'll send you. And maybe I'll add another slide with my contact information, and I'll send it to you, and you can distribute it.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll email the list with the webinar replay. We're going to upload it to YouTube later on. So yeah.
Good. See, I'm such a great marketer, aren't I? A great salesperson. After an hour with you, no one knows how to get a hold of me. Isn't that great?
Well, but I think for the most part that they know I'm going to follow up with them.
Okay, good.
I always do. Yeah. So, guys, I would love to hear from you. What do you think? Any big takeaways from what Gene says? Are you guys working on any other deals? Are you guys?
Who's going to do a deal? Who's
doing a deal right now?
Who wants to do a deal?
Like I'm doing a deal, but I don't want to be the only one talking. I've been talking now, and Gene's been talking. Someone else has got to do some talking around here. Anybody got any deals? Well, you want to pretend you have a deal?
No. We don't want to go there. We don't want to go there. Advertising and solicitation. But
no advertising.
I actually do have to run here at 4. It's 4:06.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that good enough?
Go ahead.
Thank you so much. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Call me if I can answer any questions. Thank you.
Yeah. Excellent.
Thank
guys.
you,
Well,
Eugene.
so good. Well,
See
good.
you, Steve.
All right. See you,
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
So excellent, guys. So what you guys get out of it? What do you guys think? No? It's like the Brady Bunch here. It's
I
like
thought it
watching
was
TV.
very
I don't like this
informative.
TV show. I don't like this show at all. What'd you guys think?
Because there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, and I think that all of us, no matter how long we've been in the business, forget what all is available. And Gene's a plethora of information to help you get there. That's appreciate you putting this on.
Yeah, well, 100%. But I think what most people don't realize is that in the world of syndication, and I think Steve, you touched on this too, you could syndicate anything. Anything can be syndicated. All of us on here right now, we're syndicating buildings, right? So I think primarily everyone jumped on this call today because we're talking about syndicating a big multifamily asset, which, by the way, I believe after doing this for a long time, working corporate America and doing all that, and now doing real estate, there is not another asset I would ever do this in. It's like it's perfect, right? Using other people's money, investing in a deal, everybody makes money, it goes back out, everyone's happy. It's just remarkable. However, what you touched on, Steve, is just amazing because you can syndicate just about anything. The movies that you watch on TV, those are all syndications. A syndication put that together. So done with syndication. Wherever there's a lot of money that has to be raised. But like I said, it could be used for just about any vehicle that you could think of. But in our context, of course, we're talking about multifamily. So
I'll tell you one funny little story. My wife, the whole time I've been doing this since I was in college. So I've been 43 years, whatever it is. And so my wife always used to tell me when I would show my financial statement, I'd build my financial statement. I had this equity built in on these various deals we had done. And she said, you can't spend that. That's not going to, well, so we went for years, and she's an accounting person. And so 3 years ago, we started cashing in on the partnerships, and we basically funded our retirement and those things during this process. And I said, that's that paper that we've been doing for the last 40 years. That's we're finally starting to see a little cash for that. So anyway, it really does.
But in your case, Steve, it's actually, it's good to have you on here and staying on. This is a networking game. This is a game where it took you networking, building the relationships, cultivating those relationships over years, and then eventually understanding who they are and getting them to come in with a deal with you. It's not, this is not a quick and dirty, oh, I'm just going to go decide to do this. I mean, it took me years to build up what I built up here in Cleveland alone. You know, it's not going to take overnight. It takes a little bit of time.
It does. And in our case, I started out, my father's CPA, he's 89 now, still in business, but we started out together and we decided to do this syndication. And we did it for many years, and then we quit. And now my two sons have joined us, and they want to go through that process again. So we're re-gearing up to go through the process again, and get them involved in that process. So,
that's legacy wealth. That's what I'm looking to build right now. So it's awesome. My son is too young. He's only 10, but I'm trying to train him up as best I can remotely. I'm trying my best. Well, and part of it is all this. One day, hopefully, he'll be an adult, and like 30 years from now, he'll be watching this very video, and I'm going to say, "Hi, son," and he'll be watching it. I'm going to say hi to him. He's going to freak out. Maybe.
That's great.
Excellent. All right, guys. Does anybody have any questions? Want to run by any deals or anything else like that? Anybody? No? You thinking about doing any deals? Well, I'll tell you.
Hopefully in the near future, I'll be reaching out to you.
Good. I mean, I would recommend, of course you already know, stay out of the blue states. And it sounds really bad. I'm sorry, but it's very hard to do business in New York. And I like New York. It's just that it's tough to do business there. But
the new laws are so tenant friendly. It's unbelievable. And Cuomo even made it with this pandemic that the tenants are not required to pay until after August. So you can't even evict them. You've got you'll be without rent for a year, possibly.
Yeah, that's right. There's the new HERO Act you're referring to, right? That thing, or is this something else?
I'm not sure the name of it, but I know the impact.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
But he's
The-
made other things in the law that are just, leaning towards the tenant side, and we have no power whatsoever
Yeah.
of our properties.
what they're trying to do right now is pass a law similar to what you just said, called the HERO Act, and it says that kind of stuff where basically you can't evict them for a year, and even after that, you have to get special pre-dispensation, and then you go through the eviction process. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Right.
It's not going to pass. There's
Yep.
no way. And it's things like that that are really going to hopefully make it. I mean, I'm not asking that we that we have this overbearing thing when it comes to tenants. I mean, just make it, pay your rent, you stay there. It's not
Right.
hard.
And his thought is that, they'll pay it on the backside. Well, they'll be gone by then.
They'll be
They'll
gone. Yeah,
be
he's
gone.
clearly he's never rented before. He's never
Right,
rented to a tenant before.
exactly.
That's abundantly clear at this point. Yeah, there's all kinds of things like that going on. But from what I've seen right now, I'm not going to say there's any special deals. Right. The only reason why I'm getting deals today is because of the relationships that I've built. That's the only reason. That's it. There's deals out there that we're talking to, people are talking to. It's not because of COVID or anything else like that. I'm selling a bunch of stuff. It's not because of COVID. I was planning on doing it before. It just happened to hit the market now. But there still are deals out there that need help. That's the way I look at it. I don't look at it in terms of like anything negative, like I'm trying to take advantage of people. I never do that. It's more like there's a deal out there. If I can help a seller get out of their deal and take it over for them and make it better, great. That's what I'm into. So, but they're out there. But I think, Steve, you're on the right path. There's plenty of opportunity to create a fund, for instance, like a blind pool. I've actually been leaning that way as well, like doing a blind pool for a different asset class. But why not do it for multifamily? I don't know. Maybe I might. We're doing a 506B for my one big deal we've got cooking right now. So, but we know enough people to get that done. But but to do a blind pool, I think that there's certain rules around that though. That if you do a blind pool, you guys understand what the concept of a blind pool? You know what that means in terms of syndication and things like that. So with the 506B, 506C, the stuff that Gene was talking about, you're raising money for a specific asset. There's the building. We're going to buy that building, guys. All of us, we're going to buy that building, right? Everyone's on board? Yes. We're all putting down money to buy that building right over there. Okay. A blind pool is different. A blind pool, you're not designating a specific asset. All right. That's why when we talked about it, we said, like, you can't say I'll take your money to buy a piece of real estate, and then you go off and buy a dollar store, or you go off and invest it in notes, or you go do something that's counter to what you said, because then that's just fraud. You don't want to do that. So a blind pool would be like, okay, guys, listen, we're all going to pool our money together, and then we're going to buy notes. We're going to buy defaulted notes, or we're going to buy apartment buildings. I'm going to buy C-class apartment buildings in tertiary markets between 50 to 150 units, producing this type of income. Is everyone on board with this? And everyone will say, yes, I'm on board with it. Here's my money. And the money sits there for a certain amount of time. Now, here's the thing. The expectation from the investor is, after that certain amount of time is up, you better start paying me. Right? That's the kicker. So that's the thing. It's like, after you do that, you better have a big enough funnel with enough deal flow coming in, because that investor is looking for a return on that money. That's where the danger comes in. So you have to be sure that whatever asset you buy throws off enough money consistently, so you're not having to pull money out of your pocket to pay those investors back on a bunch of cash just sitting in a pool. You see what I'm saying? That's the issue with that. So it's got its pluses that you can have the money ready to go, and that way when you have the cash sitting there right now, it's like that way I can walk up to any deal. If I know that I have $2 million in the bank right now, I can walk up to a deal confidently and say, Mr. Customer or Mr. Seller, I will buy this deal from you for $4 million. I already have $2 million in the bank right now. I'll leverage the rest, and you know you can get the credit for it. You'll close that sucker in 30 days. Super, right? You know it because you got it. If you don't have it, you have to syndicate it. Then it's like, okay, 30-day due diligence, 30-day to close. Okay, hey man, listen, I just got a deal. Let's get to work. Let's go raise some money. You know, that kind of thing, right? It's kind of like, do you know anybody that has $2 million? And now next thing you know, you're having to raise a bunch of money, right? That's the difference. So it's got its pluses and minuses. Now, Steve, you looked into this already, right? So you're familiar with it?
Yeah,
So I think it's 1 year, right? Before you have to deliver.
I don't know the detail of that, how long it is, but the reason that I'm doing it, having gone through, like Gene, 4 or 5 cycles, and at the end of those cycles, I always have asked myself, why wasn't I ready? Because the opportunity always shows itself. And so to give you an example of what I'm looking at, I'm going to say, all right, let's take a $5 million apartment deal. And let's just say that they're leveraged, and it's at the bank, it's financed at the bank, and that the bank has a $3 million loan. That's the balance left on it. And let's say that the banks get called for liquidity this fall, which is what I think is going to happen, and that liquidity means they have to sell off their troubled loans. Not that those loans are in foreclosure, but they're troubled. And so that $3 million loan on that $5 million asset is going to get sold for $1.6 million or $1.7 million. And so I'm going to get one of two things. My fund then is going to get payments based on $3 million, except that now they're going to be made on $1.6 million. So that 5% or 4% rate is going to go up to 8 or 9%. And that's the worst case scenario. I'm secured. So my second part of that is, if they default, I can foreclose, and I'll foreclose on $1.6 million note for a $5 million property. And let's say through that default process, they lose 20% of their value. It's still a $4 million process. The numbers are not close. And so there's not a ton of those, but if you're ready and you don't have time to raise the money, when the bank has to raise their equity, usually within a week or 2 weeks, they say, we got to sell off $20 million worth of loans to get back into compliance. And if you're there, and you can pick that up. And that's what I'm trying to do. I figured this is my last cycle. So, and then I'm going to retire. So, so I want to go through that cycle and see if we can not regret it after the cycle's over again.
That's right. That's right. Well, and that's the thing though too. So I think that I believe it's 12 months. I think it's 1 year before you have to start delivering the return. So if, let's say for instance, okay, everyone, we're going to put together a fund to buy these defaulted multifamily assets from lenders specifically. So I tell you guys, I'll give you a 6% return. And everybody's like, okay, 6%, cool. Okay. And it's a guaranteed 6% return. So guaranteed. So it's better than what the bank is giving you. Okay. And it's guaranteed. So no matter what, come hell or high water, I will give you 6%. But it starts in December. So it's January right now. It starts in December. And come that December or come that following January, I have to start paying you. And that's the thing. If I can't find an asset, if I can't find a bank to work with me, I'm screwed because I gotta start cutting checks, right? And that's the thing. That's the difference. So, but it's like, I think in your case, Steve, you must have the relationships or know where you can get those assets on a fairly regular basis, right?
Yeah. No, we deal with a lot of banks. We dispose of a lot of things, a lot of banks. I've served as a receiver for, in issues, and we've done about every aspect of the business over the last 43 years. And I think we have the relationships. I'm not trying to go huge. I'm just trying to be prepared with enough money to buy a few assets.
Right. And that's one thing I didn't ask Gene is, what is if there's a differential in cost to set that up? I don't know that there's any difference really in doing a blind pool. From what I understand, it's pretty much the same, right?
We're gonna give him a call next week. That's why when I saw this pop up on Facebook, I thought, that's great. This is a great great. I appreciate you doing it. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, no, we'll be doing more of these. I'm not sure who I'm going to have on next, but whoever they are, they're going to be huge. I want to try to bring the best guests I can, and share the information with the group. So yeah, excellent. Okay. Well, great. Does anybody else have any other questions? Any other comments? No.
This
All right.
was super informative, Augustino. I don't know how I found you. Somehow I got on some other.
No, we spoke last week.
Yes, I don't know how I found that. I don't know
Oh.
how I found that. I don't even remember, but somehow you popped up and I decided to join that, and I'm so glad I did. So this is all very new to me, but you know, I hope that down the road, maybe sooner than later, I guess the idea of being sophisticated isn't maybe as difficult as I thought it would
No,
be.
it's not hard. It really, in all reality, the sophistication means you're aware of what a deal is, how it's put together. I mean, the technical, what Gene said, the technical terminology is you know enough about real estate, and I prefer that you go to the Bulletproof Cash. Once I'm plugging Bulletproof Cash, I really don't care where you get the data from, but if you start from video number 1 and go all the way through all of it, you're sophisticated. You should know after listening to all that stuff. There's like, I don't know, 150 videos there right now. I have no idea. Just start watching all that. You should be very well prepared, because I share my thoughts about this stuff. Some of it is politically correct. Some of it's not. I'll always tell you what I think is the truth. I'm not saying I'm 100% right, but I've been doing this long enough. I'm not just a talking head that's never done it before. So, there's certain things that I'll say, like about partnerships, that no one says. Like, make sure you know who you're dealing with. That to me is one of the biggest things. There's only one partner that I've ever regretted, and he's probably watching this right now, and it's too bad. But it's like, you always be careful with who you partner with. That's probably one of the biggest things, and make sure you get the right partner that's going to be in it for the long term. That's huge. And anybody who's been in this business for any length of time, that's one thing I'm going to tell you. That's probably one of the biggest lessons when it comes to being a sophisticated investor, my opinion.
And that's, I think, as a new person, that is one of the most difficult things, because you don't have a history with people. You don't know who are the trustworthy people and who are the people maybe, so so there's a little learning curve there, sort of start to get to know people. And, but yeah, so anyway, I have to go, but, and I know we're wrapping up, but.
Yeah, we're wrapping up. But I will say this, Paula, after all this COVID stuff is over, we'll be doing a live event in Cleveland. So we usually do it like every 2 weeks. So hopefully by June, we'll be back. And I know you're somewhat local. So yeah. It's going to be a trip for you, because you're coming from South. You're coming from Canton. But
well, no, I live in Stowe.
So you'll be okay. You'll be
so
all right.
Yeah, I go. Yeah. So I look forward to that very much. So it was nice meeting everybody.
Excellent. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much. I'll be sending this. I'll send out an email with the webinar replay for you guys if you guys missed anything. Okay. Awesome. All right. Take care, guys.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.